China has a unilaterally laid claim to the South China Sea. Under these circumstances, the US, along with Japan, Australia, and India, is keeping China in check on the Indian Pacific coast. In this situation, the US is trying to persuade ASEAN countries to completely isolate China. The ASEAN countries have given China strong economic and military support, and they are also an important part of the One Belt, One Road in order to cope and counteract American domination. Especially since ASEAN could replace China's world factories, the choice of ASEAN plays an important role in determining whether the US-China confrontation can be won or lost. With the situation, China is really in trouble. On September 9th, the US and Chinese foreign ministers clashed at an ASEAN-hosted video conference that was attended by foreign ministers from 17 countries. China has been claiming sovereignty over approximately more than 90% of South China Sea. Therefore, China has diplomatic problems with neighboring countries such as Vietnam, the Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Brunei, as well as the US and the international community. China has built military bases along the 9 lines of the South China Sea and even built an artificial island along the lines. At the meeting, Pompeo said China's claim to sovereignty around the South China Sea could not be recognized. Also, he stressed the 2016 decision of the Hague International Court of Arbitration, which did not acknowledge that China's claim has no international legal basis. In addition to human rights violations, such as the passing of the Hong Kong National Security Law, and the CCP's aggressive actions in the South China Sea are very worrying. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi protested. The US is literally a risk factor for harming peace in the South China Sea. Hong Kong and other countries are China's internal affairs, and non-interference in other countries' internal affairs is the basic principle of international relations. Pompeo replied, "The destroyer is Beijing, not us. The neighboring countries of the South China Sea must oppose the hegemonic actions of the CCP. The US will be on your side." Diplomatic representatives from Japan and South Korea gave their answers, emphasizing that they share the same position as the US. Japanese Foreign Minister Motegi said, "We deeply regret that some countries have continued to try to unilaterally change the situation in South China Sea and East China Sea." South Korean Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa also raised the South China Sea problem and the Hong Kong problem. "We must refrain from any action that could escalate to tensions or exacerbate the situation in South China Sea. Everyone should keep their non-military commitment and respect the right and interest of all countries. Also, according to the principle of one country, two systems, Hong Kong must maintain its high degree of independence." When Foreign Minister Wang Yi tried to conduct vaccine diplomacy, he also promised to provide vaccines to the ASEAN countries first. However, contrary to China's expectations, some ASEAN countries seem to agree with the US. Vietnam Foreign Minister Pham Minh Binh said, "We welcome the US constructive and enthusiastic contribution to ASEAN's effort to maintain peace, stability, and development in the South China Sea." However, in contrast to Vietnam, the Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi said the following, "It is important to work together to develop ASEAN-China's relations to provide vaccines to our people." She also stressed the need to strengthen the ASEAN-China partnership and proposed a $300 billion increase in ASEAN-China trade in the second quarter of this year, up 5.6% over last year. While some ASEAN countries say they will remain neutral with the US, but the meeting eventually showed a sign of a split in ASEAN-China relationship. However, it has not been and is not easy for ASEAN to simply sever ties with China, because ASEAN is China's largest trade partner and its exports and imports are greater than those of the US, Japan, and the EU. As a prime example, ASEAN countries have not actively participated in the US plan to reject Huawei. On October of 2016, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, who is actually more in favor of China, said in an interview with China's state-run CCTV, "Maybe because I'm Chinese and I believe in sincerity." And last July he said, "We can make concessions on the South China Sea issue in exchange for vaccines from China." At the same time, he said he would continue to work with Chinese companies under US sanctions. One of the reasons why China is increasing its grip on ASEAN countries is the Mekong River. The Mekong River is 4,350 km long and flows through 5 countries: Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. But China built dams upstream of the Mekong and controlled the water resource. And because of this, these 5 countries have been suffering from a disastrous drought for past 10 years. And there are also several evidences that China was responsible for the drought. In April 2020, Ice Owners, a U.S. water resource consultancy, released a report that said satellite imagery shows there would have been no drought had a dam China built drained the water properly. As a result, sentiment against China escalated in the Southeast Asian countries. A hashtag called Stop Mekong Dam went up in SNS Thailand, and Vietnamese netizens even said, "Let's destroy the Chinese dam militarily." However, Chinese authorities have taken issue with the Ice Owners being an organization sponsored by the U.S. State Department, and they have ignored the request from the Southeast Asian countries to disclose information about the dam operations. This study was fabricated by the U.S., and China's dams are more likely to prevent floods and drought. On September 3rd, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Stilwell criticized China for manipulating the Mekong Dam to threaten Southeast Asian countries. China has been manipulating the water flows along the Mekong for 25 years, with the greatest disruption in natural flows coinciding with major dam construction and operation. Prime Minister Li Keqiang hastily began to appease the 5 countries in a video conference call with Mekong Basin leaders on August 23, and from there he said, "We are drinking the same river water." He promised to share the operational information of the dams, which China had previously refused, and agreed to pass on vaccines. But these efforts were not enough to reverse angry public opinion. Originally, the alleged reason for China's construction of dams in the Mekong was to control water resource in Southeast Asia. But it turns out that they are trying to control the water and electricity resource in Southeast Asia by exporting electricity from hydropower. For this reason, the U.S. is also working to shield China's Mekong Dam plan. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi previously visited 5 European countries to secure allies, but he was greeted and treated very coldly by protests against China and politicians everywhere, including Italy, Denmark, France, and Germany. China is currently at odds with India in the southwest over border problems, and in the west of China over the Xinjiang Uyghur issue with the Middle East. In the east too, Japan and Taiwan along with the US are blocking China's Pacific access. In the north, despite China's objections, Russia continued to sell arms to India. Also, the Mongolia supporting the people in Inner Mongolia who campaigned against the ban on the use of the Mongolian language in China. Even President Trump got C-19, so now China's only hope is the ASEAN Association. The world is now watching closely who is joining forces with China and who is actively participating in vaccine diplomacy. Thanks for watching. Be safe.